The Facebook Live is going to come in a minute, I hope. Actually, can you turn your laptop on? And
did we sort out the audio issue with the Facebook Live?
I think so, but I was just going to say, if you jump on Facebook and see if you can see the call on there and make sure, if I ask people if the audio is working all right, make sure people are saying it's working all right. But let's assume it is, and welcome back, Govs and Eddie and Sir Hendo, Sir Frendo.
Sir Frendo today, yes, I'm wearing my Frendo shirt.
We actually did talk about this with Hendo before you got here, Govs, about what we're going to do, and we thought we'd start with an update on what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, cool. I usually just like to rock up and unannounced and have no idea what's going on and wing it.
It was nice of you to rock up.
No, I was just saying we probably touch base on what you and I did last week, Govsy, with getting all of the data into the Rockstar Brewer system and getting things started there. So tell me about what happened, what we did.
Awesome. So yeah, we started to look at what I was doing, how we're running the brewery, and probably start to look at areas where we could improve. And mainly the first one was record keeping, which is a huge one for us. Starting the brewery was when we started the brewery back in June. We started it on about 12 hours notice, and by start I mean going from painting the floors,
to tradies to
brewing our first batch.
Not long enough for me to actually turn up.
Yeah, so it was quite a rush straight into it, and it's been a steady rush since. So keeping those records has always been a big challenge for us. So it's good to
because we set up. I remember we set up one recipe in the system, and then I saw a post on Instagram where you had printed out the brew sheet and you were starting to fill that out.
Yes.
How'd that brew day go?
Good. And we recorded all the data, so
Beautiful.
We now have new updated brew sheets that we're tracking a lot more information than we were previously.
Does it, I know it's going to create a little bit of extra work on brew day collecting that data. Do you find it gets in the way of things, or is it?
Not at all. It's something that should be being done every brew.
Yep.
So it was more so the fact that we weren't doing it beforehand.
Yep. And so now that you're tracking things with collecting information on brew day, where are we at with things like collecting information on fermentation?
Good. So we've now done 2 brews on the new system.
Yep.
So we're using that to track our data.
Yep. Okay. Awesome.
I forgot, we should tell people what we're drinking. We used to do that. We didn't do that last time.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, I suppose we're on video, so we can probably hold it up and
Yeah.
show people what we're doing.
I'm going to zoom in on that little bad boy there. I'll zoom in on yours.
Well,
Show the camera there.
bottled.
Yeah.
When was it bottled? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
I'd like to say Tuesday.
I'd like to say Wednesday because it means it's fresher than.
Right, so it's Lay Day, our newest beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very, very good. I could drink a lot of that.
Yeah, that's the idea. Not
Yeah.
now, because we've got Code Red as well.
We didn't have to wait, no. 4.4%. It's a good smashable lager. I don't know what's in it. It's probably got some New World hop action happening there.
It was actually a really random brew.
Okay.
We had no intention of brewing a hoppy lager. We were initially brewing a fruit beer.
A mini assault rifle.
Yeah, it was kind of a twist on our assault rifle that we were going to collaborate with another local business, using some new crazy ingredients. But the project never got off the ground, and I'd already ordered the grain, and it was a mixture of wheat, barley, oats, flaked barley and flaked wheat. Not your typical grain bill for a lager. But I sat there looking at it and decided rather than let it go to waste, we'd just make something. I thought, fuck it, let's do a hoppy lager with it and see what happens.
that was batch 1, right?
Yeah.
This is batch 2.
This is batch 4.
This bottle's batch 4.
Yeah.
And on tap's batch what?
So it's still
3.
got wheat and oats and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
It's like 50% wheat and oats, isn't it?
Pretty close, yeah.
Must be a bugger to sparge.
Oh yeah, it's lots of fun. It's like porridge.
Just taking time.
Then we threw we've got lots of kiwi hops. We've got Ruwaka and Citra, and
I love the new world hopping on, traditional styles like, it's something as simple as a pale lager, because it's like lager yeast. Lager often gets overlooked by, a lot of the more hardcore beer geeks and that sort of thing. But I love lager because it's crisp and it's clean, and fermented properly shares a lot of characteristics with, American style beers. But then you throw that New World hopping on it, like North American, Kiwi, Australian hops, and it's just delicious.
Well, we did a good job selling our beer. Didn't talk much about the awards. So.
That's what we're here for, isn't it? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So AIBAs, I guess that's the theme of the whole series.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
So let's talk about those. We went before, I'm pretty sure, did we? To the AIBAs?
We went last year.
Did
yes,
we?
we
Okay.
did.
You don't remember?
You were
You were underdressed.
the KBS.
I was underdressed, you were overdressed.
So
I bought a suit since then. I don't look like fucking Conor McGregor in this bitch. Don't worry.
So quick rundown on what the AIBAs are and that sort of thing. Okay, rightio. So the AIBAs, that stands for the Australian International Beer Awards. It's been going a long time now, at least 20 years, I think. It's run by the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria. It's an internationally recognised competition, and it grows every year. So first thing you need to know about the AIBAs is it's not a craft beer competition. It's just a beer competition. But there are so many styles of beer out there that craft beer makes up a fair proportion of it. It's run in Melbourne. Entries are open now, and I think they're open until the end of March, and then you submit your exhibits around the end of April. So that's the timeline that we're going to be working towards there, getting our submissions in and there into Melbourne. And so about 1,700 beers were entered last year, and there are about 70 or 80 judges, and they're made up of brewers, industry people, all have a really good sensory evaluation skills and that sort of thing. Okay, so the thing to know about the beer judges is that they are actually backed up by a team of people called stewards. Okay, and the stewards and the judges, they work together because a judge is going to be evaluating about up to 60 odd beers in a day. We judge over 3 days, and we evaluate 60-ish beers a day. That might sound like a lot. And it might
Sounds
sound
like our weekly meeting.
It might sound like I'm going to have a rocking good time there, but you don't really drink too much beer. And
You swallow the beer when you drink it, right?
you have to. Yeah, so
you're getting fucked up, surely.
only no. No. It's you really only look. At most, it's a mouthful, maybe two for each sample that you're trying. A lot of sensory evaluations just smell you, and you get a pretty good grasp of what a beer is going to be like from smelling it, and then you get the little nuances from the flavour. So 1,700 beers, 80 judges. They're split up into groups of 5 or 6 into judging panels. So you think about the number of beers that are served, 1,700 beers times 6 judges. That's a lot of glasses that need to be filled and poured, and beers that need to be dispensed and poured the right way, so they're presented to the judges in tip-top condition. And you also got to think about 1,700 beers being delivered to the RASV and catalogued and everything like that. This is a major undertaking.
Can I ask a rookie question?
Yeah.
The judges don't know the beer when they're tasting.
Absolutely not.
No.
So
they know the style.
We know this, you know the style, and that's it. So it is absolutely as far as the judges are concerned, they're totally impartial. They've got no idea what they're evaluating.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
As a judge, if you know a certain category well, will you recognise beers that you know?
sometimes you think you do, but you don't.
Mm.
You've got no idea, you know. Really good comment from the head steward, Craig, a couple of years ago. He says, you know, you might come across a beer and you think you know the beer or you think it's your beer or something like that, and he just goes, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And because if you think about it, right, okay, so this is a typical day for a judge. So you rock up to the showgrounds at about 8:30. They'll usually have a bit of a morning prep meeting about what classes, what styles are going to be judged, what panel you're going to be on, and what styles that panel's going to be doing for the day. So we know how many, at the start of the day, we know how many beers we're going to judge, and we know what styles we're going to be judging. We all sit down, the judge will introduce ourselves to each other. More often than not, we know each other, but you always meet new people. We talk about, there's one judge who's designated the table captain. So he really sets the flow for the day. There's usually another person which is given a laptop who's the scribe, so they're collecting the scores and that sort of thing.
So judges they're just yelling out their scores.
No, they're writing down. So
right.
every beer that gets evaluated gets a new sheet, and we write very detailed notes.
And you're talking to each other?
No. So how it works is we sit down, and then we'll ask the stewards to bring over the first flight. So it's up to the table. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 5 beers at a time. They'll go away. It takes about 10 minutes for them to prepare that many beers. And so, and that's actually done behind a wall. So there's actually a wall between where the stewards are and where the judges are judging. So, and no judges are allowed out in the stewarding area whatsoever. Okay, because that's where all the beers are being stored, moved around, poured. There's kegs flying everywhere. There's bottles where you could see the label, but we can't see that. It's very important that we don't see that, because if I was to see a label, my impartiality's gone.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm not. It's different. It's very different from being a beer geek and seeing a beer, and you look at and you drink a beer with your eyes before you even crack the bottle or watch it being pulled from the tap. You've already made some sort of assessment of the beer, whether it's the brand or the style or whatever. Okay, it's irrelevant to a beer judge. That's why I enjoy beer judging so much, because all that noise and all the social media hype and all that sort of stuff, it's gone, and it just comes down to me, my tongue, my nose, my eyes, and a style guideline, and whether that beer is to style, if I can detect any faults. There we go. So anyway, so stewards will bring out the first a flight of beers, and they'll put the let's say 5 beers in front of each of the judges. We won't talk, and we'll go and we'll evaluate all 5 of those beers. So they're evaluated on appearance, which is things like colour, haze, head retention, and then there's aroma, then there's flavour, then there's technical, and then there's another one which I can't think of right now. Anyway, it goes up to 20 points, and each of the qualities of the beer has a certain number of points, and so you basically score based on those qualities. And it's just basically, I don't know what beer it is. I'll see that it has a sequence number, right? So it's just beer number 22 of the day of 60. And so that's all I see with regards to what beer it is, and I know what style it is because I have a run sheet which says what the sequence is and what style it is. It's all I know. And then so you evaluate the beer, you write down some notes, score the beer, move on to the next one. You'll do all 5 beers, 1,700 beers over 3 days. We've got a good 7 minutes to evaluate a beer. So once we've done all of the beers individually and everyone's finished, then the table captain will go around each of the beers, we'll collect the scores, and so we have to collect the score on aroma, flavour, appearance, etc., etc. Give it an individual score out of 20, and then the whoever's scribing in the laptop, they will actually take an average of all of the judges and will have a table score, and that's the score that determines whether you get a medal. So it's out of 20, so there's gold, silver, bronze. It's not first, second, third. So gold, silver, bronze, I think it's 14 to 15.5 points is a bronze medal, 15.5 to 16.9, 17 is out of 20 is a silver medal, and 17 and above is a gold medal. So you can have more than one gold medal, or you can have none.
Yeah.
Okay. Very simple. Wine competitions operate this way. The AIBAs is very different to other beer competitions, like for example the World Beer Cup, where you have gold, silver, bronze. That is first, second, third, but it's not like that at the AIBAs. So I kind of like this format. It's pretty good. And so we collect our scores, we enter the scores, we talk about it. There is a little ways of negotiation as to whether we agree that a beer, if sometimes what often happens is one judge, everybody sets a, everybody evaluates beers differently. Someone might go, this beer was of gold medal status. There wasn't any faults, and another judge might just go, no, can't. I detected this.
Okay.
And so often,
so you do have a conversation about the beer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we have to come to the judging table has to come to a consensus about what the score of the beer is going to be.
Yeah.
And so we end up coming to a consensus, and sometimes that's easy, and sometimes there's some pretty heated arguments about where a beer should sit. But more often than not, it's pretty easy going, and we sort of manage to meet in the middle. You pick your battles. Sometimes I've had situations where I've tried beer and in a certain style, and it's like, well, that's the style, that is the beer, and someone's gone, nah. And you're like, and you're talking about the nuances of the beer and why you think it is, and you might go in and bat hard for a beer, but sometimes you might go, no, I can't bat for this beer, but I will compromise here and that sort of thing. So anyway, there is a consensus, and there's a table score, and sometimes you might get a medal, and sometimes you won't get a medal. But generally, if you present a beer that's pretty much to style and free of faults, that's a bronze medal. Okay. So we repeat that 60 odd times in a day, and that's the day in the life of a judge, and then we go out and drink red wine at night because we probably have enough beer.
Yeah.
So
how does that whole process compare to something like the BJCP? Because I know a lot of the listeners are probably either entered beers or might even be BJCP judges themselves.
Yeah, so with the AIBAs, there are beer style guidelines, and so there are two well-known beer style guides out there. So the BJCP, which stands for Beer Judge Certification Program, that is generally geared towards homebrewers, and it's actually a really good way to learn to be a beer judge is to do BJCP, because you do fault and flavour training as part of that. It has its own set of style guidelines. It's actually really intricate and detailed and really well written. So a style guideline for a particular style of beer will talk about the colour, the flavour, the aroma, ABV, starting gravity, IBUs, all the technical things around what a beer in that style should be. Notice it's got nothing to do with what the beer is called and what style it's sold as. And you've got to look at a beer absent of a label, and then try and see how well it melds up with how the brewer's interpretation of the style.
So does that involve compromising on your product, or you don't ever go that far? You just pick whichever ones you think are closer to style to submit those?
I think you need to. Every brewery should actually sit down and evaluate their beers prior to entering a competition, and it shouldn't be left to the marketing department.
Has it ever come up that a beer has been entered into a category that was just in the wrong category, but a gold medal winning beer, and you were is there an opportunity there for the judges to say, if we put this in that category, it's going to win?
You mean recategorising a beer?
Yeah.
We used to do that a few years ago, and I think that it's the stewards who determine whether that's actually capable. So judges are only there to smell and taste beer.
Sure.
It's not our job to work out what the categorisation of the beer should be at all. That's the steward's job. And so the stewards used to, if a judging panel had a consensus that this beer should be in this class as opposed to that, then it would get moved. But that doesn't happen anymore, which highlights the importance that prior to entering competition, make sure you got the beer in the right class, because it's not going to get reclassified for you.
And then do you, if you don't feel like a lot of your beers fit into them, you just enter one or two, or
you gotta.
It costs a lot of money to enter.
Yeah, it does. It's,
yeah.
What is it, $800 a beer or something like that?
Yeah.
And why do you have to send so much beer when you're drinking? Like we send a 10-litre keg or a carton, and 99% of that keg comes back.
Yep. With packaged beer, I think you have to send 8 litres. Six or 7 litres. So in a 24 by 330ml case of beers, that's 7.92 litres. So you just send, I think, a 16 330ml stubbies.
And with draft beer,
you need,
it's hard to get a keg.
Well, draft beer needs to be in a vessel greater than 10 litres in order for it to be draft beer.
Yeah.
That's the rules of the competition.
10 litres or greater, is it?
10 litres or greater, that's right. So you can't send.
They don't even really make. Well, I guess they make growlers. They don't really make 5-litre kegs.
Well, that's not draft.
Yeah.
No. They don't accept corny kegs anymore either. So it's got to have the industry standard A-type or D-type or S-type, whatever, commercial coupler fitting. Again, you think about it, they're lugging out the back in the stewarding area, and I've stewarded a couple of years, they're lugging 300 or 400 kegs over 3 days, and they have about half a dozen tap draft systems, one for each of the judging tables is associated with a stewarding panel who looks after each of the tables, and so they're changing kegs and flushing lines and running more beer through and all that sort of stuff. So they usually pull through quite a lot of beer before it's the part of that keg is put into a jug, which they're poured into glasses for sending out to the judging panel. And then a hell of a lot of water is used to flush. And they have those, those forklift pallet, 1,000-litre palletons, the pallet cubes, which you can put it into.
IBCs or whatever they're called.
Like our grain bins.
Yeah, that's right. So you think about all the beer that goes out, and all, even in bottled beer, it goes out. It's not all consumed. It's only like a taste is really consumed, and then it comes back and it goes into these, and they must go through heaps of those. Done. It's amazing.
So you can take your kegs out the back of the AIBAs and fill them up.
It's the world's biggest slop bucket. So it's a big day. So the key thing is really entering your beer into the right class. Dan, is not looking at what's on the label, and the marketing departments will usually look at what's on the label and go, oh, it says we market as a pale lager. Let's put it in the pale lager class. Well, there isn't actually a pale lager class, but what is it? Is it a Australian lager? Is it an international style lager? Is it a Pilsner?
Probably pale ale and IPA would be most commonly misused.
Yeah, a lot of it, like the ones I was looking at, the New World Pale Ale.
The styles that people are just so accustomed to that you almost have to call your beer a pale ale or an IPA to get people to notice it.
Yeah.
American Pale Ale is the biggest class that's entered into. It's usually around 300 or 400 entries are put into just American Pale Ale. And that we just usually of the 3 days of judging, there is usually a day that is dedicated to a day of the judging is dedicated to pale ale. Although they do stagger it, so they'll do some over the first day, some over the second day, some over the third day, because then they're doing that so that the beers, the 400th APA is judged as good as the first.
Yeah.
So they really do organise it really, really well.
All right. So let's talk about if we're to enter this year, at what point do we start thinking about what beers we enter and
Well, entries open this week.
Entries open this week, So and you've got until the end of March to enter. That doesn't mean submitting your exhibit. It just means entering. So what that means is you guys are going to enter. So you need to think about a number of things. You need to think about what beers you've got in your repertoire. which ones you think would fare well, which style each of your beers would fit into, and that means going and printing out or getting the BA style guideline from the Brewers Association website, looking at your beers, looking at the classes, and matching up the best ones stylistically, and then planning your production schedule.
Yeah, well, I mean,
around,
it's all going to work around
getting, you've got to put your best foot forward. If you're going to be doing a pale ale or an IPA or something like that,
You want it to be fresh as fuck.
you want it to be, mate, out of the tank, straight on the truck, straight to Melbourne. That's what's got to happen.
Yeah.
Are we up for that, Govsy?
Yeah, I'm always up for that. It's just, I'll have to probably talk to Chris, our sales manager, if he's ready for a bunch of pale ales and IPAs.
So does anything stand out in our range that would be a good fit for one of these categories?
I'd like to say all of them.
This okay, so haven't really sat down and had a good. We haven't gotten the style guide book out yet and really sat down and had that conversation just yet. So I think we probably would discuss that in a future episode. We'll go away, we'll have the conversation, we'll come back, we'll go, right, this is what we're going to enter.
Probably a difficult thing for us is we never created recipes with a style guideline in mind.
No.
We brewed beer that we wanted to make, and now it's a case of seeing if it fits into any of those molds.
Like Code Red, for example. It's a delicious beverage. Yeah. Available in good bars and at our Taproom right now.
Thank you.
Is there a style is there a Code Red style?
Yeah, there's hoppy red ale, so that would be like an American amber. Here's the funny thing, right? So American amber is a really interesting one because this is how the BJCP style guideline, the BA style guidelines differ. The BA interpretation of an American amber is different in terms of dry hop and resinous characteristics than the BJCP one, which doesn't really call for that. It calls for lots of bitterness and flavour, but not the juiciness of it. So some of the other styles like that. So you've got to make sure you're reading the BA
Not the
style,
BJCP.
not the BJCP.
Yeah.
Right. This is judged under BA. So, so entering your beer in the right class is super important. So case in point, a beer that was very hotly contested over the years was Hop Hog, Feral Hop Hog. I think it was around 2009 or 2010. Hop Hog was winning best champion pale ale trophy. So if you win a gold medal, then all the gold medal beers get evaluated against each other for a trophy. And so Hop Hog won champion pale ale, and was the old green label that they used to have, right, which said Hop Hog India Pale Ale.
I remember they changed it.
And it was actually entered as an American Pale Ale.
Right.
And lots of people cracked the shits at the AIBA, at the RSV, to say, that's not American Pale Ale, it says India Pale Ale on the label.
Right.
And they're like, it got entered into the class that it was entered into. Hence now, with the new labelling of Hop Hog, you see on the side in little letters it says India Pale Ale. Sometimes the word India is crossed out, and sometimes it's not. Have you noticed that?
I didn't know.
It's cheeky.
That's cool.
It's good. I think it's hilarious. So anyway, Brennan Barris has made a Hop Hog's an amazing beer and very, very well made, and it was an American Pale Ale, hands down. And you can't complain about that because stylistically, the words of the style was what Hop Hog is.
Yeah.
And that was it was Brennan Barris's interpretation of what the American Pale Ale style was. So these days, and they kind of responded to that really. So there's a new class now, so called Strong American Pale Ale, because the ABV of American Pale Ale ends at 5.6%, and IPA, because it doesn't start until 6.3, 6.4%.
All right.
So there's this gap
Everyone's
in the middle.
in the middle.
So you can kind of understand why they called it an IPA, because they didn't want people to be misinformed that it was going to be a light pale ale. It's quite a strong pale ale.
So what the marketing department...
Most IPAs are in between that, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Label-wise.
Yes, label-wise, that's it. And so, now there's the strong American Pale Ale class, which is where Thanks Captain Obvious was entered into because it's
5.8, right?
It suited that class perfectly. But Hop Hog is still entered as an American Pale Ale.
Isn't 5.8?
No, it's 5.6 now.
Oh, so they dropped it. Ah, okay.
So it sits in there, so it just stays in there, so it's 5.6.
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to keep winning this award.
So
So what do you think would be a good result for us? Like if we go down and we submit a bunch of beers and we go down to these...
Because this will actually be the second time we've entered the AIBA.
Yeah.
So last year we entered as Gypsies.
2 old beers.
We entered 2 beers and we won 2 medals.
Or 2 bronze, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
This is good.
Absolutely.
So better than that, though.
Yeah,
I guess
so
somewhere
obviously
between-
better than that
Yeah.
would be our ambition.
Okay, so
Those brews weren't done here, right?
No, we brewed them at
Four
Four
Hearts.
Hearts in
Yeah.
Ipswich.
So this will be the first time we're entering the beer we've made here.
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
So a good result for you guys would be planning what beers you're going to enter, and also having a think about whether you choose not to enter some beers. Now, so in order to win the champion brewer, so they have trophies as well as the medals, right? So to walk away with medals, bronze medals, silver medals, gold medals, great. That means your beers are good, your process is good, stylistically good, everything is ticking the boxes. But then they have the champion brewer trophies, which is basically they have champion small, medium, and large Australian brewer, champion small, medium, and large international brewer. Then they have the champion gypsy brewer trophy, and they're the big prizes, right? Now, in order to win those trophies, how it works is you've got to enter. I need to check this year's rule book because I haven't checked it yet, and it might have changed. You have to enter at least 4 beers. I think it was last year. You have to enter 4 beers, and the champion trophy is determined by the average of your top 2 scoring beers. One of them must be a gold medal beer. Okay. So again, sometimes, some years, a couple of years ago, like the champion trophy, champion trophies weren't awarded. Case in point, a Gypsy Brewer trophy that I won last year. That was the first time it was won because it was offered the year before,
But no one got gold.
Nobody got a gold medal.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So the trophy wasn't awarded. This is what the great thing about this competition is, and so I'd entered for 4 beers, I think it was, and it was Thanks Captain Obvious in bottle got 18 and something, and then Thanks Captain Obvious in keg because you can enter both. Had a different, had a slightly lower score, but was still, it was either just a gold or a very high silver.
Keg was lower.
Keg was lower, yeah. And the average of those 2 beers, even though it entered other beers, they were ignored, was higher than the other contender for the champion gypsy brewer, which was Swell Brewing, out of South Australia. So
And they got a gold. They got 1 gold as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think yeah. So that's the thing. It's like that just comes down to that. So the scores that you get matters as much as the medals that you get.
And it's effectively come down to 1 beer.
No, it could. So, for example,
In your case.
in my case, absolutely 1 beer in 2 different pack formats.
Yeah.
It could have been 2 different beers.
Yeah.
It could have been 2 different beers, and that wouldn't have mattered. Whatever was the highest 2 scores.
Where did you brew those?
They both come out of Southeast Brewing Company.
Yep.
Which is the Kaiju and Exit Brewery in Dandenong, in beautiful Dandenong South. And that was the same batch of beer, and that was actually how I went about getting that batch of Thanks Captain Obvious out was the boys at Danny South Massive do a wonderful job down there, and the brewery was pretty new, and Grum and Nat were meticulous about process and quality management, and we pulled the beer out on the day that it went to. I basically chuck kegs and cases in the back of my car, straight to delivered it to the showground itself.
Mm. So we really need to think about that if we're going to enter in one of those categories. It needs to be.
Yeah. So you've got some hoppy beers which should go in as fresh as possible. You've got to balance it with your demand. You can't just drop everything.
Yeah.
Do what you got to. You're still in the business of making and selling beer.
Yeah.
But you sometimes you just got to skew things a little bit. Maybe you might bring the batch of beer out before you actually need it, but it's got to hit a deadline. You got to make sure you get it in the tank at the right time. We cut it fine with Thanks Captain Obvious, but the boys have done such a good job on that particular batch of Thanks Captain Obvious that the bottles were entered again 3 months later, which you would think is well past the best before day of an IPA, and it still won a gold medal at the CBA Awards 3 months later.
Wow, that's cool.
So kudos to the guys at Candy South Massive. They do a really good job.
I'm fucking out of beer.
Jesus Christ, all right. No, we better wind this up.
Whatever's here.
All right, sweet. So I think that's probably enough. So next call we'll work out what sort of beers we're going to enter.
Yeah, we'll go offline. We'll have that conversation in detail that you definitely don't want to listen to because it'll take hours. And come back. We'll talk about what we're going to enter, and hopefully, I'm working on having a special guest on the show.
Yeah,
can we
that sounds good.
Skype some phone calls?
Yeah, it's probably easier to do one-on-one.
Yep.
So one person interviews the guest rather than us doing it all. Yeah.
And we will rock and roll from there. So yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you guys for listening live and on the podcast. And thanks, Hendo. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, Leon. And sorry, Jamie, that we haven't been down to fill your grill.
I got that message as well.
Who's down there?
Jamie.
She's got to pay a bill too.